Speaking of like a sort, I don't know, I guess you'd call it a bit of a family picture. Maybe one of the first real PG-13 movies. Kat and I watched Gremlins. Both Gremlins movies, 1 and 2. She was recently watching the Red Letter Media video about ranking all of Joe Dante's films, and she's a big Joe Dante fan. And she wanted to show me Gremlins, and I was like, all right, sure. I was not expecting to like these movies as much as I did. I really didn't know what to expect. I was kind of familiar with them. They were like comedies or horror comedies. And yeah, that's kind of true. The first movie is a weird... It's a weird... I don't know. It's like a weird boogie pop type of thing. It's got a lot of, I would say, overtly appealing poppy elements. But it's got that boogie. It's got that boogie. I love the phrase boogie pop. It sucks that people aren't really familiar with it beyond maybe having heard of the light novel series. I love the phrase boogie pop. But yeah, it's kind of like in that middle ground between something that is very mass appealing, but also has just like a weird niche appeal to it. Gremlins 1 is about a small town. It's a guy played by, what is his name? Zach Galligan. Zach Galligan, he lives in a small town in, where is it, like Ohio or something? He lives in a little town where, you know, everyone knows each other, and it's a quiet little town. He goes to high school, he's a teenager, and he's working a bank job, and his dad is an inventor. He comes up with, like, this is going to be the next big thing, and it's some, like, ridiculous, weird invention, some goofy stuff, right? And, of course, it never works, and it always, like, sprays toothpaste everywhere and stuff like that. His dad is visiting Chinatown and meets an ancient Chinese mystic man in his basement. It's very silly. Who sells him... Actually, he doesn't sell him. The old guy's grandson, I guess? Or maybe son. We don't know. We don't know how much he's fucking. Sells him... The grandson, the little boy, is really the one to sell him a little creature known as a mogwai. It's a little bit unclear whether or not the creature's original name is mogwai or if the species name is mogwai, or both. And that's kind of one of the aspects I like, is there's a lot of mystery around it. This little guy comes to be known as Gizmo, named, I guess, because the father is an inventor, and, you know, he likes gizmos and stuff. And, all right. I think that's the first thing I really have to talk about. He basically buys it as a pet for his son, who already has a dog, but I guess he needs a little funny guy. I am usually pretty resistant to, like, cute little mascot characters that are obviously highly marketable. Man, Gizmo really works on me. I love Gizmo. I would protect Gizmo with my life. I care so much about that little guy. I care so much about him. I wanna cuddle him. I wanna hold him in my arms. I wanna feed him soup. I fucking love Gizmo. He makes me want to cry. I love him so much. When they're mean to Gizmo, I want to, like, punch a hole in the wall. He brings Gizmo home, and he gives him a set of very specific instructions. They hate direct sunlight. They hate bright lights, and direct sunlight will kill them. Don't let them get wet, with water specifically. And don't feed them after midnight. And he's like, okay, cool. So he explains that to his family. And he's like, here's your new pet boy. Here's your new pet son. And Billy, the main character, is just kind of like rocking with Gizmo. He's just like, yeah, this is my cute little guy, and I feed him, and I take care of him, and we have fun, and he watches TV. And he likes watching movies. And okay, here's like a little detail. Part of the idea is that part of the idea, like the setup of where the characters are at in their lives, is Billy is talking to his neighbor, and his neighbor is like, well, gee, you're basically supporting your whole family, because his dad doesn't make like any money from his stupid invention entrepreneur thing. You're basically supporting your whole family. And Billy is working as a clerk at a bank while going to high school. So it can't be more than part-time. And they live in this massive house. They live in that. It's like a big-ass 2-story house. Probably at least 3 bedrooms. I don't know if they have a basement. Does that add value to the house? I don't know. Like a big front lawn, like this great looking house. They've got all this furniture. Like, was that okay? People in the 80s, people who lived in the 80s, is that just what the 80s were like? What the hell? You could, like, nowadays where I live, Billy could be working a full-time job and his dad, and they'd be living out of their fucking car. They'd be living in like a shithole apartment with like 1 bedroom. They'd be living in a basement. Jesus Christ. Is that actually accurate, or is that just movie bullshit? I'm really curious. He's working as an entry-level bank clerk while going to school. He's like 16. Anyway, naturally, what else happens but the rules get broken. Gizmo gets wet. In this very weird scene, you're like, oh god, what's happening to him? And it ends up like when they get wet, they multiply. I guess they reproduce asexually. And he just like splits off into little fuzzballs. They like pop out of him. And then they grow very quickly into other little Mogwai Gizmos. But they're not all so friendly. And then if they eat after midnight, then they transform. They get gremlin. They get gremlin-y. They get evil and green and scaly, and they turn into like kind of folklore gremlins. Gremlins in folklore are little mischief makers. They just fuck shit up. I believe the origin is actually based on airplanes. That there was like an urban or like a myth that airplane failures were the result of gremlins, ripping apart or tampering with airplane parts. That's just sort of like a little folkloric tale. That's where the terror at 20,000 feet comes from, the classic Twilight Zone thing. And is there a reference to that? I guess they're just little mischief makers, but like violently, dangerously mischief makers. They're not harmless by any stretch of the imagination. So once that happens, all hell breaks loose, and they gotta protect the town from these little green monsters. So the movie kind of progresses as it switches from this sort of light-hearted, silly family film. It ends up having there's a lot of horror scenes. There's a lot of weird horror stuff. There's a really good scene when he's walking into like the classroom and it's all dark and the projector's going. That's like the only source of light. And he finds the dead body of the professor who was looking at the mogwai that he gave to him. That's a good scene. Yeah, there's some like good tension, but the fact that they're also like mischievous, it means that there's also a comedic aspect. Like they're kind of silly. They're dangerous, but in like a silly way. They're a little jokery, if you know what I mean. They're little jonglers. I would say one of the best parts of the movie is how many little charm points it has. There's just like every character's got a little thing going on. He's got the neighbor who is like comically xenophobic of all immigrants. He doesn't trust the Russians. He doesn't trust the Poles. He doesn't trust like He doesn't trust foreign cars. He only trusts American-made things. And he's also very superstitious, and he believes in the gremlins and stuff like that. There's like the horrible, nasty neighbor who's like threatening to kill Billy's dog because he like knocked over like an antique of hers. Not even an antique, it's some like kitschy snowman statue in her front lawn that he knocked over, the dog knocked over, and she's like, I'm gonna fucking kill your dog slowly and painfully. And she gets killed in an awesome way. She gets rocketed out the goddamn window. It's awesome. It's mostly just like a consistently entertaining horror comedy where the characters are in imminent danger, but the circumstances are just kind of ridiculous. And there's some moments of effective tension, there's some moments of effective comedy, and it's rare that a movie manages to thread the line between those, but Gremlins really pulls it off in a way I find really entertaining. It's just like I wasn't expecting it to be that good. I think you hear the premise and you're like, this seems like a dumb movie. And then it's like really well made. It's better than it has any right to be. And then tragically, the movie ends with Gizmo being taken away back to Chinatown, which leads into movie. It is kind of like a standard sequel where they're just doing the same thing but bigger. But it's doing it in a way with a different tone such that it's basically a full-on comedy. It's practically a parody of the first movie, and to some extent, in that sense, like sequels in general. Like, it's pointing out the ridiculousness of the sequel formula that was so popular in the 80s, being a 1990 movie. So just right at the tail end of the 80s, essentially, where it's now they're at a point where they could like make commentary about the trends of the 80s with the whole decade in perspective. So the whole idea is it's a few years later, Billy and his love interest from the first movie have moved to New York. They're dating. They've got an apartment together. The old Chinese guy doesn't want to give his land up to this like cartoonishly like yuppie vapid businessman, something Clamp, Mr. Clamp. The old man dies of like a heart attack or something. The yuppie guy scoops up the property and now wants to build some stuff on it. And this also results in Gizmo being captured, being basically seized and taken to one of the businesses that are hosted inside of his building. It's a very like Trump Towers thing. This is where the majority of the movie takes place, all inside of this one big, huge skyscraper. This one big business building, which I think is a very fun setting for a film, because it's got all of these weird businesses inside. They have a gene splicing division for some reason. He's just hosting like a genetic testing. He's hosting like the Umbrella Corporation in his building. They get a hold of Gizmo. Billy is an artist. He's like a cartoonist in the first movie, and now he's got a job as like a landscape artist. He draws like building concepts for developments that they're doing. And he catches wind that Gizmo is there. He finds him, stuffs him in a drawer, says that he'll be back for him later. And then, lo and behold, Gizmo gets out, he gets wet, and the whole cycle starts all over again. That's why it's called the new batch, but with a twist. They get into the into the genetic testing laboratory, and they start like just drinking different serums. It's very silly, very cartoony. They're just drinking different serums that are labeled with different things. Like one of them gets it's with like bat wings, and he grows bat wings. There's one who he drinks like a serum that just has a lightning bolt on it, and he turns into electricity. There's one that drinks a brain potion, and it makes him super intelligent and able to speak. And that's kind of the MO, is just all these goofy gremlin concepts. It's just playing around with the formula of what are all these different weird gremlin variants that we can fit in here to make it more interesting, to set up more varied set pieces and moments and things like that, or just even little sight gags, like the one that's made out of vegetables. Now, of course, this leads to Billy and what's her name? Kate. Billy and Kate having to stop all the gremlins. But bigger now, because what if the first one was in a small town, but what if they get out into New York City? They're going to cause so much havoc, they'll be unstoppable. They'll just keep multiplying. This movie is really funny because in a lot of ways, it's like, it's like a parody of movies. There's all of these plot elements that you would think would go somewhere and just comedically don't. Like, the one that grows bat wings then drinks an sunlight serum, and he becomes immune to the sun. And you're like, oh my god, this is going to be a big deal. And they send that gremlin out, and you're like, oh, this is going to cause a big catastrophe. And then, no, he just gets dumped in concrete by the xenophobic guy who's there visiting New York with his wife. He just gets beaten with like a shovel. And he just dunks him in concrete, and he turns into like a little gargoyle, and it goes nowhere. And it's built up as this big thing. It goes nowhere. The reason it's there is to have a funny scene. There's this whole plot thread about how Billy's boss has the hots for him, and she like invites him out to dinner, and she like tries to give him a foot job under the table. And Billy is sort of humoring her because he sort of wants a promotion, but you can tell he's not really into it, and he really doesn't want to cheat on his girlfriend. But Kate sees them going out, and she's like, And I thought it was going to be a bigger deal, but she is like refreshingly pragmatic. She's not like, Billy, I hate you. She says something during the movie to the effect of, Billy, if we survive to tomorrow, you're in big trouble. Which is the perfect way to handle that. She's like, let's just work on this so that doesn't happen again. Let's just save the city, and then I can get on your ass for fooling around with other women. And then by the end of the movie, it's resolved. She's like, oh yeah, you're actually like, there's really like, yeah, I believe you. You're not actually messing around with her. It's fine. And it's just cool. It's fine. There's other things with like, oh my god, speaking of Svengoolie, there is a very Svengoolie-esque character in Grandpa Fred, who's like this older guy. He hosts like a horror variety show on the Clamp network. And it's one of the channels that they own. And he really wanted to be a news anchor. And then, but he's consigned to this life of being like a gimmicky horror host. And then during the Gremlin invasion, he just grabs a guy with a camera. He's specifically Asian guy with a camera, which is such a specific archetype that if you've ever been around you've seen that guy. Asian guy with camera. Any kind of tourist trap. And he gets him on, and he's his cameraman, and he starts like guerrilla broadcasting from inside of the building, covering the Gremlins crisis. And it's great. And the stupid clamp guy, Yuppie Man, is like looking at all the TV screens, and he sees Grandpa Fred doing the thing, and he stares at it, and he goes, Dracula? Like, he doesn't even know his own guy. He doesn't even know his own employee. He doesn't recognize him. He's still wearing, like, the full makeup. And the costume and everything. And then by the end, that pays off. It's just like it's just an excuse to have fun scenes with gremlins doing goofy shit. And it's not really a horror movie. It really has none of the horror vestiges of the first movie. It's just a full-on comedy, which I think is a good approach. Just redoing the first movie in both structure and tone might have been a little much. But Gremlins 2 really is its own thing, and I know a lot of people prefer it. I don't know if I actually prefer either of these movies over each other. I think they both have kind of fun things to offer, and sometimes it's more of a Gremlins 1 kind of mood. Sometimes it's more of a Gremlins 2. But I think they're both totally worth watching, and there's tons of funny stuff in them. I found Gremlins 2 really funny. It's a big parody of CNN and like the big multimedia news empire. The guy is named Clamp. His network is called the Clamp News. Clamp? Is it Clamp? No, it's not Clamp News Network. It's Clamp Corp News, I think. Hang on. What is the acronym? CCN. Clamp Cable Network. It's CCN. Which is a clear, riff on CNN. One of the things I found odd, or that I picked up on, there's a moment in the movie where he is convinced that, like, this is it. And he's really excited because he finally gets to play the Clamp Cable News Doomsday tape. And he puts it on, and I was like, oh, this is a reference to a real thing. And Kat wasn't aware of this. That tape that he plays with, like, all the idyllic nature videos and, like, the world is ending, we'll be on the air until it's done. That is a reference to a real thing that CNN has. Back when the network was first formed, Ted Turner insisted, I guess he was just really afraid of the apocalypse. And Ted Turner commissioned a video called, excuse me, you look up, it's called the CNN Doomsday Tape, that they were to air on a loop in the event that there was a world-ending situation of some sort. And it's very eerie. It is it's a performance of some, it's a choral performance of some, like, American hymn, some patriotic song. Is it? Hang on, let me look it up. CNN, Doomsday Video. The Turner Doomsday Video is the internal title of an apocalyptic video intended to be broadcast by CNN at the end of the world. Created at the discretion of CNN founder Ted Turner before the network's 1980 launch. Is a performance of the Christian hymn Nearer My God to Thee, performed by multiple members of the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine bands. Now, what I find interesting about this is that I didn't know this. This was not a publicly known like, we didn't have the tape until 2015. It was leaked by an intern who had heard of it from a former professor, who had formerly worked at CNN, and said, oh, there's this rumor about this Doomsday Video. And I guess he found it, and I imagine most people had not thought about it since it was recorded, and leaked it online. And so we didn't know what was actually on it. There was, before the leak, there was a single rumor about it that I can see. Okay, well, hang on. Well, not exactly. Okay. So before Gremlins is 1990. The first public knowledge of this is in 1988, where the New Yorker published an article about the tape. I'm assuming it was some kind of insider thing, just describing it. In 2009, oh, wait, hang on. No, wait. I misread this Wikipedia article. The video did not become publicly available until 2015 when a writer for Jalopnik revealed a copy of the video that he had recorded during a 2009 internship. Yeah, so there was basically nothing about this tape for decades besides that one article. And Joe Dante made a version, basically made a parody of this thing, which is really odd. Really interesting. It's not necessarily like... It's not exactly like super accurate. I think it's just like this hymn in the actual video. Apparently Joe Dante said that they made the better one, which is pretty funny. So he just made that based off of a pure rumor. Very funny. Anything else about Gremlins 2? I still love Gizmo. I love Gizmo so much. He's probably the most effective Scrimblow I've ever encountered. Yeah, I think that they both hold up really well. They're both a lot of fun. I think they're funny. They're really good at doing what they set out to do. There's a great parody. Oh my god, the fucking parody of the Christmas story from, like, the personal tragic anecdote about Christmas from the first movie that gets parodied in Gremlins 2, where in the first movie she's like, I don't like Christmas, and she goes into this whole long... They're in some, like, highly dangerous situation, and she just stops everything to tell him about this tragic backstory she has about what happened on Christmas. And it's this, like, ridiculous fucking story about her dad pretending to be Santa Claus and getting stuck in the chimney and suffocating to death. It's like the most ridiculous shit ever. Could he not call for help? And then in Gremlins 2, she starts doing the same thing, but about Abraham Lincoln's birthday. You can see Zach Galligan trying not to laugh in that scene because she's doing a really good job committing to the bit. It's great. What else is she in? Phoebe Cates. Oh, she's in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And Drop Dead Fred. And Lego Dimensions as Kate Berenger. Was there a Lego Dimensions Gremlins expansion? Okay. Whatever. In any event, yeah. Gremlins. And Gremlins 2. Good. You should watch them. Put them on sometime.